one other thing is if at any point you've established wireless and you have set up rules, if you hire a contractor and they bring in their wireless laptop, they're like, oh, great, no, you need to make policy. That's called a rogue wireless device. Just like that gentleman, he brought in his own modem from home. Anything that's unapproved is called rogue. You're going to hear that a lot. So no rogue devices, because it messes up everything. And finally, here's a summary. Never disable antivirus. Never use a rogue device, wireless or not. Never give away your password. These are things you want to impress upon your staff, not just do yourselves. Never install a modem or any hardware, any software, and never open suspicious email. Take a look, if you would, inside of your packets. A couple things. There's a 4-page document. It's called Business Manager's Threats 101. Technical malicious code, people. These are your notes for that entire section. So everything I've talked about is on there for you. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to come up to me after the session. What I'd like to do now is please be prompt. We'll take a 15-minute break, and when we come back, we have just about another hour left. Okay? Thank you. Welcome back. Did you have a good time? Okay, a couple things to talk about the next session, or the section is, I'm going to focus on risk assessments, also on how you can be a security role model. First, a risk assessment. How many people have participated in automating some form of paper process within your organization? Okay. And how many are contemplating going wireless? Okay. Those are two obvious examples of when you may be required or you may contribute to participating in a risk assessment. So what is a risk assessment? I have about 4 or 5 slides that talk about what a risk assessment is and how you can participate in it. And we've also included in your packet a checklist of things to consider during a risk assessment. First, risk assessment is a business process. You already manage risks, you manage budgets, you manage projects, etc. There's another risk out there, information security, things to consider before you go forward with a major project. You want to consider the threats, the vulnerabilities to information security, and identify the current weaknesses that could open up your organization to compromise. First, what are assets? Hardware, software, applications, information, people. What are some risks? Well, what if one of your staff were to disclose their password or disable antivirus, open an email attachment that was containing a virus or a worm, attach a wireless device to your network without approval, or leave a confidential file folder around? Those are risks to information. So you have assets. Now you know of some risks. How do you do a risk assessment? Again, you're going to be required to do this, many of you. So I want to give you the recipe for it. First, each asset has a potential security exposure. Each security exposure needs to be found and identified, and the probability or likelihood has to be determined. Then the risks need to be prioritized, and then you need to address the risk. We're going to fix it, we're going to mitigate it, we're going to accept the risk. In a nutshell, I want you to think of a risk assessment that might happen at home. How many people have a PC at home? How many people are connected to the internet via Roadrunner? Okay. Let's do this. A third of you that raised your hands do tax returns at night on the side. So you have multiple clients, you have their personal information, okay? Another third of you just use the internet to do some surfing, some travel investigation, etc. Basic use. And then the other third of you attach, and the only reason that you're attached to the Roadrunner is because you have a couple kids and they like to go out and play games. That's it. And on your PC, you have no personal information at all. Those are three very different scenarios. In the situation where you have someone's tax information, what is the asset? The PC and the information, right? Yeah, absolutely. Now, you may determine we need to fix this. There's liability. An interesting fun fact, approximately 100 times during a session when you're attached to the internet, you are observed by someone else. Frightening. There's a static connection between your internet connection via Roadrunner and your PC. So, in the case of having someone's personal information on your PC that you want to protect, you might want to call up an IT professional and say, please help me. They would put in a firewall, maybe they would put in a router, they would do all of this stuff. You're addressing the issue. In the case of, well, we have some home information, we do some credit card stuff, we do some traveling online, you have some risks, but in the scheme of things, are they as critical? Is the information as critical as the other? Maybe, maybe not. And then the third scenario, you're like, it's just the kid's PC, that we have nothing out there, I'm just going to accept the risk. Does that make sense? So within your organizations, I have mentioned the policy requires that agencies identify information owners, someone to be responsible for a particular application and that information that's in it. You need to participate in a risk assessment going forward or in the current situation. Maybe it sounds a little frightening to you. That's where the EISO comes in. You as business managers know what your business need is. You understand your information. The information security officer understands the risks, and your IT group understands the tools. So if you work together, the three of you will perform the risk assessment. Does that make sense? You're not alone. At home, you're alone. In your agency, you have your information security officer. Please introduce yourself to them and please utilize them. Other resources to help you. You have the New York State Information Security Policy. You have your own agency-specific information security policy. You have your IT staff. You have your ISO. You have this risk assessment checklist, if you look in your packets. 6 areas to consider during a risk assessment. Just basic questions. Will it affect the health and safety? Will my decision? Will it cause harm to someone? Will it violate any laws? Do you need to consider HIPAA? Is there an operational impact? Will there be financial consequences? In wrapping up, if you would take a look inside of your packets, there is a sheet called Information Security Officer, Roles and Responsibilities. Again, if you do not know who your Information Security Officer is, please introduce yourself to them. So what you can do to help. You can be a security role model. What that is. Familiarize yourself with information security policies, New York State Information Security Policy, your agency information security policy. Manage the risks. You may be participating in risk assessments. Understand IT's role. I hope you do better now. Build security in the beginning. If you're beginning an application, you're going wireless, you're automating a paper process, you need to think about it 360. Support the education of your staff, please. Encourage your staff to practice good security and be aware. Teach your staff about protecting information. Encourage them to participate in information awareness training. Ask questions. Don't circumvent procedures. Follow policies, and don't become a bad statistic. In your packets, again, if you look, there is how to be a role model handout. Again, things to remind you. These are all tools you can use in developing your own agency information security awareness program. And in summary, hopefully I've been able to tie all of the components I promised to you about the New York State Information Security Policy into the presentation. Each agency is responsible for developing their own agency-specific information security policy. You need to be familiar with these policies. You need to participate in risk assessments, introduce and use, and work with your ISO and your IT group. Each agency is going to be identifying information owners, so be ready, and now you know what that entails. And managers and staff need to attend awareness and education. It's policy. And of course, if you do it right the first time, it just saves dollars, it just makes sense. And work together. You and your staff are the greatest assets. Understand that buy-in is essential. Understand that you setting the role, setting the model within your organizations is key. If you have any questions, please come on up and talk with me after the session. Also, please talk to your ISO. Remember, in your packets, your evaluation sheet, if you hand it in, you will get the CD with the videos on it. And finally, thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Thank you.